In 2013, American Airlines became the largest airline in the world. It had just completed the biggest airline merger in aviation history, combining with US Airways to create a giant with more than 1,500 aircraft, 7 major hubs, and a network that stretched across the globe. The future looked unstoppable, but 12 years later, American Airlines is retreating. It has cancelled major routes, pulled back from key airports, and is losing ground in some of the most valuable markets in the United States. Meanwhile, another airline has been quietly taking control: United Airlines. On one of the most important routes American tried to enter recently, Los Angeles to Washington Dulles, United already carried 88% of all local passengers before American even launched its first flight. Think about that for a second. American was not entering a competitive market. It was entering a market United already owned. And that is exactly what has been happening across the country. While American spent the last decade carrying one of the largest debt burdens in the airline industry, United spent the same decade strengthening its hubs, expanding internationally, upgrading its premium cabins, and locking down the corporate travelers that generate the industry's highest profits. Today, United is the world's largest airline. It earned $3.4 billion in profit in 2025. American earned less than $1 billion. So how did the airline that won the biggest merger in aviation history end up falling behind? And how did United Airlines quietly take control of the most important airports in America? Because the answer goes back to a decision made in 2013, one that left American Airlines carrying more than $36 billion in debt and gave United a head start it may never overcome. United had its own merger problem to deal with. The 2010 merger with Continental Airlines had been messy. The integration took years, technology systems clashed, employees from two very different cultures had to figure out how to work together. But Continental brought something that United would eventually build an entire strategy around. It brought Newark. Newark Liberty International Airport, right across the Hudson River from Manhattan, became the foundation of United's most important competitive move. It is not just an airport. It controls access to New York's business travel market, the most valuable domestic market in the United States. From Newark, United built outward, not by adding more domestic routes, by adding international ones, by positioning Newark, San Francisco, Washington Dulles, and Los Angeles as gateway hubs, the entry and exit points for the most profitable passengers in the world, business travelers flying transatlantic and trans-Pacific. United's hubs don't just sit at busy airports, they sit at geographic choke points. Newark controls the Atlantic. San Francisco and Guam control the Pacific. Houston controls Latin America. Washington Dulles controls transatlantic and African routes. Every one of those gateways is a place where American Airlines also has a presence, and on every one of them, United has been methodically turning its size into dominance. By 2025, United carried more than 181 million revenue passengers, making it the largest airline in the world. Its total operating revenue reached $59.1 billion. Net income was $3.4 billion. American, with a larger fleet, carried fewer passengers and generated far less profit. Its adjusted operating margins remain in the mid-single digits. United's margins are roughly double that. The gap didn't happen by accident. Here's how United does it and why American can't stop it. Airline competition is not like regular competition. You cannot just add flights and take market share overnight. Airports have a fixed number of gates, slots, and runways. The airlines that got there first and built the most connections, the most frequencies, the most loyal corporate accounts, have a structural advantage that takes years to dislodge. United has spent the last decade turning that advantage into a wall. Take Washington Dulles. United controls it so completely that it operates wide-body aircraft on domestic US routes out of Dulles. Not because those flights need wide-body planes, but because frequency and premium seat availability are how you win corporate travel contracts. When a company signs a deal with an airline, they are not just buying tickets. They are buying reliability, frequency, lounge access, and upgrade availability. United's Polaris business class with lie-flat seats and direct aisle access is available on domestic Dulles routes that American is trying to compete on with narrow-body jets. Now look at Los Angeles. United operates LAX as a gateway hub for both domestic connections and trans-Pacific long-haul flying. It has resources, frequency, and premium product locked in across dozens of routes. American wanted to grow at LAX. In April 2026, it launched a non-stop service between Los Angeles and Washington Dulles. It was a direct attack on one of United's strongest corridors. It lasted weeks in 2025 before American even launched its non-stop service. United carried 572,739 of the route's 648,753 local passengers, an 88% market share, 6 daily departures in each direction, wide-body jets, premium cabins. American had 4,408 passengers on connecting itineraries through Dallas and Charlotte. That's not competition. That's trying to grow a flower in concrete. And it isn't just Dulles. American suspended all 4 of its new LAX routes in 2026, affecting over 1.4 million passengers. Each of those routes to Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Washington Dulles is a market where United already had deep presence. The real story isn't the route cancellations. Routes get cancelled all the time. The real story is why American has no way to respond. Fighting United at LAX, Dulles, or Newark requires the same things: wide-body jets for premium route deployment, lounge upgrades to win corporate accounts, and technology investment to match United's operational reliability and app experience. Every single one of those requires capital. And American's capital is already spoken for. American ended 2025 with $36.5 billion in total debt. That's not an operating problem. It's a structural one. Every year, the airline pays approximately $1.9 billion just in interest charges. That's money that cannot go into new aircraft interiors, cannot go into lounges, cannot go into the kind of product investment that would let American compete for the business travelers United is harvesting. Compare that to United. In July 2025, United repaid the final $1.52 billion of its Mileage Plus secured debt, roughly 2 years ahead of schedule. Its loyalty program is now completely unencumbered. United's Mileage Plus program alone is estimated by some analysts to be worth nearly $20 billion. American, meanwhile, has negative shareholder equity, meaning the airline's total liabilities exceed its total assets. And United isn't using its financial advantage to sit still. In 2025, it flew a record 27.4 million premium seats. Then it doubled down. New Polaris suites, new premium cabins, new aircraft designed specifically for the most profitable routes in America. These aren't random upgrades. They're being deployed on the exact routes where American needs to grow. While United keeps investing billions into attracting high-paying business travelers, American is spending nearly $2 billion a year just servicing debt. That's the difference. American's net income in 2024 was $846 million, 75% below Delta's and 73% below United's. That is the debt trap. American generates enough cash to survive and slowly pay down debt, but not enough to invest at the pace United is moving. If there was one strategy that could have helped American break out of the trap, it was the Northeast Alliance with JetBlue. The idea was clever. American cannot beat United at Newark, and it struggles at JFK. JetBlue has a strong presence in New York and Boston. Together they could pool resources, coordinate schedules, and go after United's most valuable corporate territory without American having to spend billions building it from scratch. For American, the alliance looked like an escape route. Then the government shut it down. The Department of Justice argued that the partnership would give the two airlines too much control over key markets, and the courts agreed. In July 2025, the Supreme Court declined to hear American's appeal. That was the end. American was forced to rebuild its New York and Boston strategy entirely from scratch, without a partner, without the joint revenue pooling, and without the network density that made the alliance worth building. United had no such problem. Its Newark hub remains its most profitable operation. In 2025, United achieved its best on-time departure performance at Newark for a second quarter since the pandemic. It is running Newark better than American or Delta runs JFK or LaGuardia. Every year the Northeast Alliance was blocked. American fell further behind in the most valuable travel market in the United States. Step back and look at the full picture. United now operates 7 primary hubs: Chicago O'Hare, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, Newark, San Francisco, and Washington Dulles. American operates hubs at Dallas, Fort Worth, Charlotte, Chicago O'Hare, Miami, and Philadelphia. The overlap, Chicago and Los Angeles, is precisely where the battle is being fought. And in both of those markets, United has been systematically expanding while American has been forced to pull back. At Chicago O'Hare, United planned a 30% flight increase for summer 2026, so aggressive that the FAA had to impose capacity limits and force cuts. Even after those cuts, United's 2026 Chicago schedule remains 13% above 2025 levels. It is still growing just slightly slower than it wanted. American's Chicago presence, by contrast, is shrinking. It cut frequencies. It trimmed routes. It is the smaller carrier at a hub it has operated for decades. At Los Angeles, the story is the same. United is building. American is retreating. The pattern is not a coincidence. It's a strategy. United is not randomly winning. It is winning at exactly the airports where premium international connections are made, the airports where a business traveler in Dallas or Charlotte would have to connect through to fly international on a competitor. Every time United strengthens a hub city, it makes Americans connecting passengers more likely to rebook on a United itinerary. This is what it looks like when one airline methodically takes control of the infrastructure that its rival needs to survive. In 2013, American Airlines completed the biggest merger in aviation history and declared itself the world's largest airline. It was, for a while. Today, American carries $36.5 billion in debt, a legacy of the merger decisions made in those early years. It pays nearly $2 billion a year in interest. It cannot match United's premium product. It cannot build at the hubs United controls. It cannot win the corporate contracts that fund the margins that fund the next generation of investment. United is now the world's largest airline. It earned $3.4 billion in net income in 2025 on $59 billion in revenue. It is expanding internationally, launching new premium cabins and pulling further ahead of American in every metric that matters. American is still flying. It still serves more domestic routes than any other US airline. It still has a loyal customer base, and it is genuinely working to reduce its debt. It cut $2.1 billion in 2025 alone and may reach its $35 billion target ahead of schedule. But the strategic ground is already lost. United controls the coastal gateways. United controls the premium international connections. United controls the corporate travel market in New York, Washington, and the West Coast. The merger that was supposed to make American the most powerful airline in the world is the same decision that handed United the keys to the American sky. And at 88% market share on the routes American is trying to grow, United isn't giving them back. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care.